I'm going to set up a world healing field for today, December 16th. And so I choose to set up a world healing field. Ask that all our helpers and guides please be present. I suggest you state out loud, I choose to connect to my deep self. I choose to connect to my higher self. I choose to connect to my highest self. I ground myself to the healing center of the earth. I open myself to the healing power of the One. And I choose to let go of anything no longer useful to me now. And I choose to work with the Hathors. And I ask that we be placed in a field of protection while we do this work. I ask the higher self to take us through the portal of time to the event that would be of the highest good to release and integrate at this time. And I invite all souls affected by this event to return to the event and release and integrate the energy of the event for themselves. And I ask that they be placed in a field of protection while they do their work. Upon arrival at the event, I ask the higher self to assist us to release and integrate all energies of the event, gently and easily, fully and completely, on all levels and through all space and time. I had an interesting experience maybe an hour and a half ago, where my wife and I were having a conversation about kind of the dream world and the energetics that we were currently feeling related to the world. And all of a sudden I felt really calm. And I mentioned it to her. And she said, yeah, she felt that happen too. That she just went into a place of calm. So when I went downstairs, I have a friend in the East Coast that I most mornings send a good morning greeting to them. And I explained what had happened, that the energy that my wife and I felt like we were working with was like an agitated energy, and then all of a sudden it went poof. And then this calm descended. And I mentioned this to my friend out east. And she said, was that about 10 or 15 minutes ago? Because the same thing happened for me. I just think these things are fascinating. So we're just going to go through this healing event, and I'm going to ask my guide Arlen to assist me, particularly with some of the energetics that I've been working with, that I'm quite sure are related to this event we've gone back to. But we'll work with the energies of the event together. You can just work with the energies of the event for yourself if you want. If that's what you're interested in, is just working with those energetics that you're noticing that are at the surface that you're releasing now. Or you can listen, to what Arlen will have to say if he has anything to say. Okay, one of the things that Stephen's been working with is, again, this detoxification of the body, where things will just begin to primarily be eliminated through the skin. But the skin's just one of the elimination organs. And so these things are coming out from other places in the body and then coming out through the skin. And he has been aware of this area in the throat, of there being stuck energies there. And he's been doing some work with his Ancestral Healing Codes course, which has been taking him back to some of his, more of his feminine ancestry, his mother's mother, his father's mother, and been able to realize, what the energetics that he grew up with were about. So his mother was approximately 13 when her father passed away, and so with his passage, he was kind of the breadwinner, and so with his passage, her 3 brothers were put into seminary to be educated as priests. Well, to be educated and then decide if they wanted to be priests. And 3 of them all 3 of our brothers went into the school system, to lead up to the possibility of priesthood, and 2 of them became priests in the Catholic Church. But that was the disruption of that family's life. They had this father, mother, there were 3 boys, 2 girls, and then the father died. And then the mother had to figure out how to deal with 5 children and maybe no income. What do you do with that? And my grandmother on my father's side, she had a similar circumstance. My understanding is that she and I think her 4 sisters, so I think there were 5 girls, the mom, the dad. The dad died, and the girls were, not real old. And his best friend had emigrated from Scotland to Canada. And when he found out about his friend's death, he wrote to his friend's wife and said, pack up everything and get on a ship and come to Canada, and we'll get married, and I'll raise the children with you. So that was a similar circumstance, a similar loss of father. But in this case, a stepfather showing up. And but in both of these women, and through my mother, there was just a feeling of grief. And through my grandmother, a feeling of grief. And also anger through my grandmother on my father's side. And so as I have been doing this ancestral healing work, I've been going back into the consciousness of my ancestors and connecting with that consciousness and noticing what I notice inside my own system. And so Stephen's consciousness has risen. And it's fine. We're just going to let him go with that, and I'm just going to step out. Okay. Well, so as I was doing that, I began to notice all this tension in my throat. And the center of the throat is related to grief and loss, and the lower part of the throat is related to anger. So I noticed these things, and then I went to bed at night a couple nights ago. When I woke up in the morning, the side of my face was swollen up, and my body was detoxing something. And then it continued, and it detoxed down in through my throat. And the lymph glands, were filled up. And then I went ahead and I did some castor oil pack for this part, and also for my abdomen, over my abdominal organs. And I left that on for the day. And I had this awareness when I was studying the healing process, in the early days of the healing process, that when certain emotions would release from the body, deep emotions would come out and be released. There would oftentimes be something like a cold or the flu that would occur afterwards. So these toxins were maybe attached to these emotional energies. So when these emotional energies are released, oftentimes there can be a physical cleansing that takes place after that. And in this case, I did this work with releasing some grief and anger from my ancestral line that had come to me. So I was the one that was able to then allow that energy to come up from the trauma of those losses and then release that energy. After which there was some swelling and that took place where my body just began releasing those toxins right out the skin in the areas where the energies were being held. The process of cleansing that's going on the earth, it began with the entrance of a being named Abrahamanad in 1997, and that being came in on the 23rd of March of 1997. I had an opportunity to speak with that being, to telepathically communicate with that being, and that being told me that we would, as a planet, we'd be going through, the humans would be going through a 28-year cycle of cleansing. And there would be 7 years of physical cleansing, 7 years of mental. So 97 to 2004 physical, 2004 to 2011 mental, 2011 to 2018 emotional, 2018 to 2025 spiritual. There would be aspects to all of them. As one part cleansed, another part would cleanse. But this has been the process that's going on that completes on March 24th of 2025. So it's a little over 3 months, 3.5 months possibly, that we have to finish this cleansing process. And the process that I was taught for assisting the release of these emotions is that whenever I feel triggered, then I take the story that comes up for me. Nobody cares, whatever, who did who to what. Nobody ever puts their dishes away. Whatever the story is that has those emotions associated with them. And you take the story and you take the emotions and you just separate them arm's length apart. And you can probably feel this when I do it. When they get arm's length apart, then they start to detach from each other. And then the emotions can just be released. And then the story can be released. And it's done. It's as simple as that. And it's a process that was taught to me in June of 2020 of how to more rapidly release these emotions as they would come to the surface rather than kind of dump them on the people around, which is maybe all we knew to do in the past was to tell them how stupid they were for leaving, their shoes in a place you might have been walking, whatever. Whatever it was, whatever the trigger was, it had to do with typically with an unresolved event from the past. So now I'm going back consciously to these unresolved events from the past. And it may be that we all are. So to look at the things that began to happen when I signed up for this course, my brother was aware of the trauma therapist, mystic, named Thomas Hübl, through some of his connections. And I told him that I was signing up for this course with Thomas Hübl. And he wrote me back and said, interesting, he was going to be going to Ireland to trace our family's roots during that time that the course was starting. And yesterday, my nephew, who lives in New Mexico, he had been given a poem my mom had written when she was leaving the home she had lived in South Pasadena, California, for 30-some years. And she and my father were moving up to Northern California to move into the home where my sister lived to help her raise her 2 boys after their father had left. So there's a lot of interesting things. But my mother had written this poem, and my older brother's son had put these lyrics to music and had made up a song with these lyrics as lyrics of the song. And he had made it up. There was 2 different styles that he sent. But the fact that he's sending me this, sending many of his family members this music that he made up from my mother's poem about leaving the land she had lived in for 32 years, the home she had lived in for 32 years. And anyway, just the interest of having all of these things related to our past, related to our ancestry, all of which are useful to resolve now. And I don't know how it really works. The cleansing process was to go 28 years. It was to complete on March 23rd, 24th of 2025. And it seems to be ramping up. And so I'm going to be doing more of these healing fields. And today my plan was to have Arlen work directly with me with some things going on, because oftentimes when he works directly with me, he tends to help others heal similar areas. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to see if I can just stay down inside while Arlen works with these areas. Okay, one of the areas that Stephen was speaking about was this area in the upper part of the neck, which I've been with Stephen in this lifetime, assisting him to the process of being human. And so one of the things that he discovered was this area of the neck called the second cervical. There's 7 cervicals, and they go from the top down. There's the first cervical and the second cervical. And the second cervical has to do with emotions and mother. And so he was just speaking about his mother who had passed years ago, 20 years ago, but about a poem of his mother about leaving her home of 30 years at the time. And this area is where, when we're holding emotional tension, we hold it. So what we're going to do is just feel this emotional tension, and then just gently and easily let it go. And while you do this, you might want to pay attention to the event that we went back to that's typically off to the right, and feel into that event, and feel if these emotions don't feel related to that event. So as you let them go, you change the energetics of that event. And here we go. And so you just notice then how that affects you. You notice if you become more aware of other parts of your body having released that. I know in Stephen's body there was a feeling of energy in the elbows, which has to do with grief and loss, which I'm sure were the emotions of that poem that she wrote when she was leaving her town of 32 years. And now there's just energies moving through the body because that was released. And if you check the event, you'll notice the events changed. Okay, then down from that vertebra, just down slightly, the 3rd and 4th cervicals have a similar amount of tension in them. And so once again, pay attention to the event off to your right as that energy releases from the neck. And now from the ears and the eyes and the sides of the head. And then there's, in Stephen's body, possibly in yours as well, if you're doing a similar thing, there is a feeling of increased energy in the solar plexus and in the back not the top of the head, but towards the back of the head, where it goes from flat on top to flat in back, the crown area. There's a kind of an energy held in the solar plexus and in the crown chakra area. And first the solar plexus seems to be releasing. And the crown chakra releasing. And the event releasing. And the solar plexus releasing more. More energy streaming through the feet down into the earth, with the grounding chakras connected to the healing center of the earth. Now the event is cleared. So I ask the interdimensional being, Thoth and Ra, the deep self, the higher self, and the soul ray group, to assist all the souls that return to the event, to combine with that part of their soul that had remained at the event, and bring that combined soul back into their body in present time, with all of its wisdom, power, clarity, compassion, curiosity, and kindness. And I'd ask all those souls to ground themselves into the healing center of the earth, open up the portal for the delivery of the new energies into the earth at this time. And I would ask that these new energies be brought in now. And be grounded in the healing center of the earth. And the activation energies be brought in now. This event has been resolved, it's been released and integrated, and the part of the soul that had remained at the event has combined with that part of its soul that had gone back to the event to release the energy of the event, and those two have come back into the body as one, with all their wisdom, power, clarity, compassion, curiosity, kindness, all of those energies that come back with that combined soul. And then by clearing that event allows this whole new wave of energies to come into the earth to uplift the energetics of the planet once again. And this is done continuously. This is a continuous process. And these fields are set up frequently, sometimes 3 to 4 times a week, sometimes these individual fields, sometimes 3 to 4 times a week, sometimes 7 days a week. But the world healing field in which they're set up is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So any time that you feel like you're working with some intense energetics, you can always connect to the world field and have all these beings supporting you, releasing and integrating those energetics for yourself. Okay. Thank you for participating, and for Stephen and myself. Now must go.